Hi everyone, this is Mariah from the Allen County Public Library coming to you from my front porch. And later in the video, I'll be coming to you from my kitchen. The Allen County Public Library is kicking off its summer reading program. The first month of the summer reading program, one day a week, we'll have a food video. This Monday, it is Meatball Monday. Next week will be Taco Tuesday. So keep an eye on our calendar for each day for their video and, of course, the lovely librarians that are bringing them to you and all of their best food. So today we are reading Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Simon Schuster are the publishers of this book, and they have graciously extended their permission for librarians and teachers to read their books online to keep everyone connected during this time of self-distancing, some isolation. So we want to give a big thank you to Simon & Schuster and Judi, Barrett, and Ron Barrett. Judi wrote the book, Ron did the illustrations. So are we ready to read Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs? Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. We were all sitting around the big kitchen table. It was Saturday morning, pancake morning. Mom was squeezing oranges for juice. Henry and I were betting on how many pancakes we each could eat. And Grandpa was doing the flipping. Seconds later, something flew through the air, headed toward the kitchen ceiling, and landed right on Henry. After we realized the flying object was only a pancake, we all laughed, even Grandpa. Breakfast continued quite uneventful. All the other pancakes landed in the pan, and all of them were eaten, even the one that landed on Henry. That night, touched off by the pancake incident at breakfast, Grandpa told us the best tall tale bedtime story he had ever told. Across an ocean, over lots of big bumpy mountains, across 3 hot deserts and 1 smaller ocean, there lay the tiny town of Chew and Swallow. Isn't it great? All these mountains and oceans. In most ways, it was very much like any other tiny town. It had a main street lined with stores, houses with trees and gardens around them, and a schoolhouse, about 300 people, and some assorted cats and dogs. But there were no food stores in the town of Chew and Swallow. The sky supplied all the food they could possibly want. The only thing that was really different about Chew and Swallow was its weather. It came 3 times a day, at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Everything that anyone ate came from the sky. Looks a little like our town, doesn't it? Whatever the weather served, that's what they ate. But it never rained rain, it never snowed snow, and it never blew just wind. It rained things like soup and juice. It snowed things like mashed potatoes and green peas. And sometimes the wind blew in storms of hamburgers. Look at that. I don't know if I would like raining hamburgers. The people could watch the weather report on television in the morning, and they would even hear a prediction for the next day's food. When the townspeople went outside, they carried their plates, cups, glasses, forks, spoons, knives, and napkins with them. That way, they would always be prepared for any kind of weather. If there were leftovers, and there usually were, the people took them home and put them in the refrigerator in case they got hungry in between meals. The menu varied. By the time they woke up in the morning, breakfast was coming down. After a brief shower of orange juice, low clouds of sunny side up eggs moved in, followed by pieces of toast, butter and jelly sprinkled down for the toast, and most of the time it rained milk afterwards. For lunch one day, frankenfooters, already in their rolls, blew in from the northwest at about 5 miles per hour. There were mustard clouds nearby, and the wind shifted to the east and brought in baked beans. A drizzle of soda finished the meal. The squirrels and the birds are happy. Dinner one night consisted of lamb chops, becoming heavy at times, with occasional catch-up. Periods of peas and baked beans were followed by gradual clearing, with a wonderful jello setting in the west. The sanitation department of Chew and Swallow had a rather unusual job for a sanitation department. It had to remove the food that fell on houses and sidewalks and lawns. The workers cleaned things up after every meal and fed all the cats and dogs. Then they emptied some of it into the surrounding oceans for the fish and turtles and whales to eat. The rest of the food was put back into the earth so that the soil would be richer for the people's flower gardens. Isn't it great? They're taking care of everyone. Life for the townspeople was delicious until the weather took a turn for the worst. One day there was nothing but gorgonzola cheese all day long. The next day there was only broccoli, all overcooked. And the next day there were Brussels sprouts with peanut butter with mayonnaise. Another day there was a pea soup bog. No one could see where they were going, and they could barely find the rest of the meal that had got stuck in the fog. Something's going on. The food was getting larger and larger, and so were the portions. The people were getting frightened. Violent storms blew up frequently. Awful things were happening. On Tuesday, there was a hurricane of bread and rolls all day long and into the night. There were soft rolls and hard rolls, some with seeds and some without. There was white bread and rye and whole wheat toast. Most of it was larger than they had ever seen bread or rolls before. It was a terrible day. Everyone had to stay indoors. Roofs were damaged, and the sanitation department was beside itself. The mess took the workers 4 days to clean up, and the sea was full of floating rolls. To help out, the people piled up as much bread as they could in their backyards. The birds pecked at it for a bit, but it just stayed there, getting stellar and stellar. There was a storm of pancakes one morning and a downpour of maple syrup that nearly flooded the town. A huge pancake covered the school. No one could get it off because of its weight, so they had to close the school. Oh my goodness. It's not looking good. Lunch one day brought 15-inch drifts of cream cheese and jelly sandwiches. Everyone ate themselves sick, and the day ended with a stomach ache. There was an awful salt and pepper wind accompanied by even worse tomato tornado. People were sneezing themselves silly and running to avoid tomatoes. The town was a mess, and there were seeds and pulp everywhere. Oh my goodness, look at that tornado. The sanitation department gave up. The job was too big. Everyone feared for their lives. They couldn't go outside most of the time. Many houses were badly damaged by giant meatballs. Stores were boarded up, and there was no more school for the children. So a decision was made to abandon the town of Chew and Swallow. It was a matter of survival. There's a giant pickle. Look at these donuts down here. I like a donut, but not that big. The people glued together giant pieces of stale bread sandwich style with peanut butter, took the absolute necessities with them, and set sail on their rafts for a new land. Giant peanut butter sandwich. It was a raft. After being afloat for a week, they finally reached a small coastal town, which welcomed them. The bread had held up surprisingly well enough for them to build temporary houses for themselves out of it. The children began school again, and the adults all tried to find places for themselves in this new land. The biggest change they had to make was getting used to buying food at the supermarket. They found it odd that the food was kept on shelves, packaged in boxes, cans, and bottles. Meat that had to be cooked was kept in large refrigerators. Nothing came down from the sky except rain and snow. The clouds above their heads were no longer made of fried eggs. No one ever got hit by a hamburger again, and nobody dared to go back to Chew and Swallow to find out what had happened to it. They were too afraid. Henry and I were awake until the end of Grandpa's story. I remember his goodnight kiss. The next morning, we woke up to see snow falling outside of our window. We ran downstairs for breakfast and ate it a little faster than usual so we could go sledding with Grandpa. It's funny, but even as we were sledding down the hill, we thought we saw a large pat of butter at the top, and we could almost smell mashed potatoes. See, up there by Grandpa, the sun coming up, does look like a pat of butter. The end. Thank you for listening to Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs with me, Miss Mariah. Now, we're going to get to my kitchen. Okay, everyone, we're in my kitchen. I'm only going to show you my hands because, like, right now, this is all you're going to need to be worried about. This is where the meatball magic happens. Okay, so we got a pound of ground beef. It doesn't matter the fat or any of that. It's just your preference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my 1 egg. And that holds everything together. So that's why that's in there. My Worcestershire sauce, or Worcestershire sauce, however you want to say it, if you want to be all fancy about it. And then this is my Italian flavored breadcrumbs. I've got a cup out. I've got a little extra laid out to the side, just in case once I get to working and it's not holding together well. I've got a little bit out so I don't cross-contaminate, because I'm going to get really messy here in a minute. I personally like my meatballs a little more Italian. So I'm going to add a little bit of extra oregano. I'm going to add garlic. And I'm going to add some basil. Basil is really good in scrambled eggs too, if you ever want to try that. Okay, so now we've got the ingredients. Now we're going to add the cheese. Now, I know the recipe calls for half a cup of each cheese, but I like mine really cheesy. So this is not called, and by the way, I just washed my hands, so make sure you wash your hands. Don't touch anything. But yeah, I like my meatballs real cheesy. So you see, I'm starting to make a little bit of a mess, but that's okay. Because you know what? I got a sink over there. I've got sponges. I've got detergent. Got things to clean my floor. So we're all good. And you know, and meatballs are supposed to be a little fun. So I'm just working all of this in. All right. So you see what I'm doing? And so I'm going to take just a little test ball here and roll it up. But you know what? Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to pour that rest in there. If I hadn't used it, it could have easily went back into the canister. So no waste, right? Except for that little piece of meat that just decided it didn't want to be a meatball. But I cleaned all my surfaces before I got started. So everything's good. The oven is preheating at 350. All right. I think we've got everything worked in there really good. And this is one of those things where you just kind of, you know, you eyeball it, make sure there's no clumps of just hamburger meat with nothing in it, or just a big clump of cheese or seasoning. All right, look at that. This could easily be a meatloaf recipe too, if you add, you know, just a few extra or different ingredients. Okay, so I'm going to wipe my hands off. But I'm going to go wash them after I wipe them off. I'm just doing this to keep from cross-contaminating my counter space and things, because I don't want to be sick and I don't want my daughter to be sick. All right. It's mixed. Now we're ready to make the meatballs. All right, we are back. I've washed my hands. I've cleared my workspace. I've got my, what they call a broiler pan out. It allows the oil and the grease that's going to come out of the meatballs or any type of meatloaf or pork chops, whatever you're cooking, to drip to the bottom. I've lined it with aluminum foil because I'm the one doing the dishes and I don't want a huge mess. I've also sprayed the top of the broiler pan with a cooking spray. I used a butter flavor, but it's totally up to you. All right, here we go. So I just pinch like this, and my hands are kind of small, so like that's usually about the size of the meatball that I do. So we're just gonna run right through this. That's a little bit. So we just, it's okay to pinch off and start over. And sometimes you're going to notice, like sometimes a meatball doesn't hold together as well as the others. And I don't really know why that is. Maybe it was, I didn't mix it enough, things of that nature. So we are just going to continue rolling. It depends on the size of your meatball, really how many meatballs you get to a recipe. I know they say, oh, this makes so many meatballs, but If you make really big meatballs, of course there's going to be less. And if you make small meatballs, it's going to be fewer. So we're going to put all these here. And again, I'm making a mess, but that's okay. It's all good. I've got cleaning supplies. You know, I was thinking about the book we read, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And I'm thinking, you know, they were talking about houses being damaged by giant meatballs. Oh my goodness. Couldn't even imagine what that would be like. Again, this is fun. It's a little bit of a stress relief too. And right now I know a lot of us are under some extra stress with the COVID-19 outbreak, and things are a little uncertain right now. But you know what? You know what always makes me feel better? A little bit of comfort food. Not a lot, because you know, it's unhealthy to eat a lot of any food. So making meatballs or tacos or even homemade pizzas. Homemade pizzas are always fun to make. Especially if you get individual little crusts and everybody makes their own pizzas. That is always a good time here. My daughter and I have very different tastes in what we think should be on a pizza. I get a little crazy and add pineapples and stuff like that. She's like, no, pepperoni and cheese, please. And the good thing about this meatball recipe is you can freeze. What meatballs you don't use, just freeze them up, and then you can thaw them out and use them for later. You know, those nights when you get home and you're just like, I don't want to cook. Well, I got frozen meatballs. I'll just throw on some noodles, and that's what we will have. All right, we're down to our last two meatballs. It's really nice chatting with you guys. I miss every one of our patrons. You guys mean a lot to us. You're like our family away from our home. Okay, so I have got them all patted out. Now I'm going to wipe my hands off really well, but you're going to see me do something here, and I'm going to tell you, once I'm done, I'll go get some cleaner on a wash rag, and I'll clean my oven door, okay? So I'm going to step over here. I'm going to put these in the oven, and we'll bake them for, it's a gas oven, so those tend to get a little harder. So 350, we'll come back and check on them in 20 minutes, but most of the time it takes 30. See you in 30. Oh my goodness, everyone. I just stepped outside while cooking our meatballs, and it looks like it has been raining spaghetti. So let's go inside and see if we have a chance of meatballs. Welcome back, everyone. Well, you saw the weather report. Looked like we had some spaghetti. Here is our meatballs. Look at these guys. Aren't they just fabulous? Well, actually, they're marvelous because they're mine. So I'm going to put a few here. You can tell they're not all perfect. They're not all exactly the same size. And I'm really hungry, so I'm going to get me a smaller one. Put it right there. Does that not look delicious? And I'm just going to add a little bit of sauce that I heated up. And you have spaghetti and meatballs. I almost lost them. There you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Everyone from the Allen County Public Library is excited for this summer reading program to kick off and get all the youngsters involved in the library this summer.
We look forward to hearing from you. Stay safe, stay well, and stay kind. This has been Miss Mariah with my marvelous meatballs. Thank you.